is JD. Welcome to my channel. So today I need to operate on this watch. So this is the platform balance that I think has a problem with this jewel setting on the top, which is causing the overall the pivots not to set nicely into the holes of the jewels. So I want to look at this for a second and determine what I can do here to make this thing work properly. So I know how much you folks out there in the watch world love to see me draw on the back of these business cards. But when you, I'm telling you, you got to leave a company, and then that way you can use the business cards for drawing on. So over the years, I've worked in a number of fantastic companies, and I've left for whatever reason, and I've got some business cards left over, which are great for this. So here's my problem space with this platform balance. So if I draw this platform balance, this is what it looks like right now. And if you see this, there's a pinion here and the escapements above this here, but this is not what the problem was. So the balance itself was riding on this setting and the setting for the top, right? So, and if I bring the setting in here for the top of the balance, this is what it looks like. This is there we go. That's the setting there. And if you notice on the setting, I always apologize for my fingernails, but I do play guitar, so back off. So you see these screws here? These screws are in fact holding on this cap jewel for the balance, right? So, and the screw goes slightly over the top of the edge of the lip or whatever on the top of this cap jewel. And then underneath that cap jewel is the upper balance jewel. I'll look at it from this side, and you can see there it is there. And there's a little bit of an indent, a bowl, I'll say, and that bowl allows the, when you put this together, it allows the pivot of the balance staff to find center and get inside that hole, right? And that hole, the lip on that hole is really, really small, right? So the width of that jewel, where that bowl is very small. So if this is out at all, then the balance, when it's sitting down on the watch in this platform configuration, which is like this, right, that the balance goes down a bit. If it's down a bit, it's not going to get into that hole, and it's going to cause kind of erratic movement of the balance, which is what was seen on this watch. So the amplitude just wasn't there, and it's just shaking around in that bowl. It's rattling around in the bowl, the pivot is. Anyway, so that's that. So if I can draw this, can I draw this? I'm not sure if I can draw this upside down, but I'll draw it upside down. So there's the balance there. This is the balance, right? So, and I'll just draw it like that. And the balance has got the timing screws on it, let's say. There's the balance. I'll just throw a couple of timing screws on there. And then the balance staff would come down like that, right? And then there's a roller table here, and then the roller table, the impulse jewel is down like this. That's shellacked in. And then as this balance goes down a little further, it ends up with a pivot on the very end of it. So I'm just going to exaggerate the size of the pivot here. So that pivot goes into the bowl that I talked about, right? So there's the pivot, there's the bowl, like that, and then there's the other side of the jewel, right? So this is the actual jewel itself, and then the jewel, I'm going to fatten this up just to emphasize what I'm talking about here. So this is the jewel right there, and there's a hole in that jewel that pivot goes through. So if that pivot is not going through that hole or riding in that hole, it's going to be rattling around inside that little bowl, right? Which is often a problem if the depthing isn't right? So if you don't have the right depthing here, and something's wrong that way, then that's going to cause the problem, right? So that's a problem on this side of it, right? So, and then there's a cap jewel on top like this, right? And then the cap jewel is fit pretty tight onto there, so that the actual pivot will touch. The end of that pivot will touch the cap jewel. So if this is a big close-up of the pivot, and it would be kind of like that. That's the pivot like here. That's the cap jewel there, touching that pivot like this. And then I'll just move it like that, the cap jewel like that. and then the actual jewel, and this would be the lower jewel, would go like this, and then you'd have the bowl like this, and then some very small diameter, and then the other side like that. So there's that very small, that's the bowl. It's a shitty drawing of a bowl, but that's the bowl. And then the upper side, same thing, right? So the upper side, the pivot just, or the balance staff comes through like that, and then it forms the pivot on the end in the same manner. So you've got a pivot, and I'll exaggerate again. And the same thing here. You've got a bowl here, right? And again, I'm exaggerating the size of the jewel. So that's the jewel, and an exaggerated jewel. And you've got the actual hole in the jewel would be here, and in a perfect situation, this would be riding in that hole. Well, this is the lower part of the balance here. So in fact, what's happening is that the pivot is inside that the hole in the lower jewel, so lower balance jewel. But because it's inside here, there's an issue of this not being inside, right? And I'm just going to draw this. This is the cap jewel here, like this. Okay, and you'd oil the inside of that, right? Just put a bit of oil on the jewel itself, on the cap jewel itself, and then you place it in. So what's happening on this watch, and I'll show it to you in a second, is that these cap jewels, when they're put on, there's a setting, right? So I'll just draw the jewel setting like this, right? And I'll just draw the lip of the jewel setting on the other side like this. So there's the jewel setting. And then on the setting, there's a screw that would go right here. This is a screw that would be threaded and go all the way in here. And then there'd be I'd say a hat on the top of that screw. And that hat on the screw, and it'd be the same thing on both sides, right? So you'd get the screw like this, and then it would come all the way up, and then there'd be a hat on this side. And this hat here has to be pushing down on the setting, on the jewel setting, or this will come up. So you can imagine that someone is putting this watch together, and the upper balance has those screws as well, right? So you've got a jewel setting like that with a little lip, another the other side with a little lip like that, and then you've got a screw coming up like this, and I'll just do that, and there's the hat for that setting like this, and the same thing on this side. You've got the screw here like this and like this, and then you've got the hat coming over the top of the lip on this side. So what I assumed happened here, this is my big drawing here, look at that, eh? What I assumed happened is when someone installed that the balance cock for this thing, which is this device here, right? They installed the balance cock, and when they pushed that down, what they did was they dislodged the setting. So the setting is up a bit. So the setting went this way, right? So it went up this way. And what happened there was that the balance and the setting and the jewel and everything else kind of goes lower, right? And when that goes lower, it takes the pivot out of this hole, right? So, and somebody, I believe, put the wrong screw in here. So the screw wasn't actually going over the lip. This part wasn't there. So the screw is short, allowing the setting to go up. So I'm going to just bring this over for a second and show you what I mean. So there's the setting. And if I look at these two screws, if I zoom in, I'll get close here. If I look at the two screws, you can see one screw is over the lip of that cap jewel, and the other screw misses it completely. And in fact, this other screw is the wrong screw. It's not the right screw. And because of that, if I just tilt this, if I'm lucky, this will zoom for me, right? I'll just tilt it like that. There we go. When you look at this tilted, you can see that this screw here doesn't function at all. It allows that cap jewel to rise up, and I'll bet you dollars to big ass donuts, if I take one of my stakes from my staking set, I could move this cap jewel down. And when I move that cap jewel down, 0.01 or 0.02 millimeters down, it's going to cause all of this will go up a bit, right? And this will cause all this stuff to fit. And then the pivot will ride inside the jewel on the upper and lower balance. So what I need to do with this watch movement is actually, I'll remove these screws here, and then I'll find another screw, a different screw to put on there to screw that down tight so that lip is flush, right? And I'll make sure that this cap here is down properly, right, and not causing this thing to ride up. And if I look at this is the diagnostic part of the video. I think I'll just make this video really quick, and then I'll fix the problem, right? So, because you don't need to see me fixing this problem, I don't think. So if I look inside here, I've got the escapement, this pinwheel escapement kind of thing happening here, and it's an old British kind of escapement. And if I look in here, can I get this to zoom at all? Back it up just a bit. Yeah, this is not sitting low enough, and there's probably an angle there. I can't really see it here. I'd have to go into the microscope, the serial microscope, to have a look. But there's an angle in there, or this is sitting perfectly, but because this has been raised up by allowing the screw to hit, the pivot is going deeper into this, and the cap is not keeping that pivot in place. So meaning that the pivot should only go down this far, but the cap is up at an angle like this. It's up at a bit of an angle like that, allowing the pivot to go up even higher, right, which would cause that problem. So that's the diagnostics of this particular issue, and I'm just going to make a video on this right now, and so you can understand the problem. And the fix, it's pretty easy. You just have to replace that screw with a proper one. So just disassemble this, and then make sure it's clean. It should be clean because I cleaned it, but you can peg out the holes on this as well, on the jewel, and then put some oil on the other side of this cap jewel, and then put the cap jewel back and make sure it's flush, right? And then you can reinstall all the rest of it and it'll work perfectly. So that's it. That's the video. Found the problem. It's pretty interesting how these problems can exist. Some watchmaker found a screw, put it in, didn't pay attention, didn't give a shit or something, and then it ended up becoming a big problem with this particular watch. So that's the problem. So shout out to John out there, because I'm going to send him a link to this video and tell him solve the problem. Now I just have to do a quick repair on it, and not sure if I need to show you how I do that, but because I'll just unscrew that and have a look at it and replace it. So that's it. So this is JD. Thanks for watching my channel. Keep in tune always. So, and then I'll see you next time for the next video.